This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. Yes, it's me for another week. And before we start the show, I wanted to let you know that if you like hearing my voice, which not many people do, but I reckon you do, because that's why you're listening, head to patreon.com/radiomike for 2 bonus podcasts every week. That's 3 times as much content as you get by not being a patron. And I like the Patreon supporters more and might post a naked picture this week. Emphasis on the word might. I won't be doing it, but I might. Sign up. Patreon's overflowing with content, including pictures of me naked. Possibly, but definitely not. Over to the show. Stop thinking about my penis. Okay.
So don't waste your time trying to make anything cool or pure or awesome, because the man's just gonna call you a fat, washed-up loser and crush your soul. So do yourselves a favor and just give up!
Show your move. Good news, everyone. Don't you little giddy when you see onions?
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Mike the Hype Liberali, and this is the inside of my mind. Mike the Hype. Andy Lee always calls me Mike the Hype. I don't know where he came up with it, but I thought, because every week on the show I start with a different name. And I thought every time Andy rings me, he's like, Mike the Hype Liberali. And then I'm like, Andy Lee, because I can't think of one for him. So if you can think of one for him, send it in to me so I can use it. But yeah, Mike the Hype Liberali, this week's name. Welcome to 20th Century Boy, a podcast about me, Radio Mike, writer and producer from here in Melbourne, Australia, just trying to make his way through life, and life's chill. It's currently raining outside, so I won't be leaving the apartment today, and that's fine. This is a podcast that is the conversations you wish you were having, the conversations you want to be having, conversations you want to be having with your friends, but you can't because they're too weird and wacky. So then you listen to this podcast and have a one-sided conversation with me where you can't respond live, but you can respond through any of our social media channels. RadioMikePod@gmail.com, email in, call the hotline, 1-800-438-353, radio.mike on Instagram, tweet about the show at It's Radio Mike. You know, all of these ways you can get involved with this show because you guys help build this dumb show that I do. Wanted to start off today's show, and welcome, by the way. I just wanted to do just a little shout out, if that's okay, because we do have we have a brand new Patreon supporter. Welcome to the Patreon family, Patreon Zach Bender. And Zach has subscribed to the Patreon at $20 a month. And I did want to just do, I've never actually done this, and I might try and do it at the end of each show, but there are now 4 people giving $20 a month to this show, which is incredible, and I really appreciate it. So shout outs to Patreon Danny, Patreon Whitey, Patreon Kyle, and then 3 people who give $12 a month, Patreon Adrian, Patreon Alex Sky, and Patreon Shanna. Just wanted to do a shout out to those guys. The Patreon is growing. We're now on 66 Patreon supporters. Let's get to 70. We're above halfway of 60. Let's get to 70. As little as $1 a month. Anyway, plugs throughout the show for that. I just wanted to do a public shout out to the people giving $20 a month. That's huge, and I really appreciate it. Got some messages up from the Patreon that I wanted to start this week's show off with as well. Patreon Dick, I assume that's your real name. Hey Mike, he's a new Patreon subscriber as well on the $1 a month tier, I believe. Hey Mike, been listening for about 1.5 years. Always been meaning to get around to the Patreon, but had to make an account, which was holding me back. That is very frustrating, just making an account. You can give a one-off donation, paypal.me/itsradiomike, if you just want to give a one-off cash donation. All goes a long way. When you said you were diving into Frankie Muniz's filmography, I knew it was time. Then a couple weeks later, I finally did it. Enjoy your couple of coffees. Anyway, keep it up. Love the content. The music podcast also hit at the right time while I was doing yard work the other day. Enjoy hearing how you found each song. Cheers, Dick. Thank you, Dickie. And Patreon Lunchtime, another Patreon supporter. He's got all his feedback from last week's episode. Hey, Mike. Bit late listening to the pod this week because life, but a few thoughts I had from this week. Firstly, you mentioned Ed Sheeran, the collaboration extraordinaire, and how his new Pokemon song will open up a new market of Pokemon playing children. My question, do you think there's many young kids playing and discovering Pokemon for the first time? Or are they all sad 29-year-old adults trying to relive their childhood like me? I bought and finished Pokemon Sword and Shield when it came out, and will do the same for Scarlet and Violet. I know my niece and nephew have also never taken an interest in Pokemon, despite their dad, similar age to me, being a keen Pokemon Go player. I also play a lot of RuneScape and World of Warcraft and know a large portion of their communities are nostalgia-chasing adults, as opposed to new people discovering the games for the first time. Their creators are even profiting off this phenomenon by releasing old-school RuneScape and WoW Classic, which allows you to play the game similar to how it was when you first played 10 to 15 years ago. Their designs aren't made to be attractive to new players, but instead to re-attract their former players. I think the role nostalgia plays in the video game landscape would be an interesting topic for the pod, or an overflow topic. Finally, loved the dumbest comment I've read all week segment. Hope this becomes a recurring segment in the pod. Thanks, and have a great week. Radio Lunchtime. Yeah, this week on the overflow, I'll talk about what you've just said about nostalgia and everything. I'm going to talk about that. So join up to the Patreon to hear me talk about that over on the TCB Overflow, the exclusive Patreon podcast. As far as Pokemon goes, I disagree. I think there are lots and lots of new kids getting into Pokemon. Believe me. Hamish Blake, his son was super into Pokemon, and Hamish used to always ring me asking for questions. I think Pokemon is perfect for young kids, and that's what it's for. I don't play the games anymore. Honestly, sorry if people think that I'm actually a hardcore fan of the Pokemon games. I don't play them. They're not for me. They're children's games. I play Pokemon Showdown online because that's like the competitive Pokemon scene, which is quite a sophisticated battle system if you're into nerdy video games like me, but I don't play the mainline games. I don't care. I think kids are still as into it as always. The cards, merchandise, games, everything. Pokemon Go. People still play Pokemon Go. I think, again, it's the most profitable franchise of all time. It's so profitable and so many people are playing it. I don't think at all that kids are not on board with it. I think there are a lot of people nostalgia chasing. I just gave up on it because I just couldn't play the games anymore. They just weren't interesting. But I still like the franchise. I still like looking at the new Pokemon and seeing what they're doing. I don't know. It is just that nostalgia part of me that I've never really grown out of. I don't play the games, but I'm just interested in the franchise, which is kind of weird. I'll answer the rest on the overflow, like I said. In the spirit of trying new things, I've basically realized I've been doing a lot of thinking recently, listening to a lot of self-help podcasts and stuff, and I've been thinking a lot about how I live my life, and often because I live alone, I end up at home by myself a lot most nights if I'm not sort of hanging out with a friend, and I'm like, I want to try and do new things. I want to, or just things other than basically being in my room on TikTok or on Twitter or on any other social media app, because I realize that that's dead time. I never finish a binge of TikTok and go, oh, that was time well spent. So I'm just trying to adjust my habits accordingly. My phone is now out of my room when I sleep. We've all tried it. I'm just trying to commit to this. I put my phone away and I don't look at a screen after about 9:30. I just go to bed and I close my eyes and I try to go to sleep, right? My phone is away. I'm not looking at, because and if I'm going to like the supermarket or something, I put a podcast on and I don't look at my phone. I just listen to the podcast and do my shopping. And then I'm getting urges. Like, it's so amazing how hard encoded a lot of these urges are in my brain. I literally, I finish my shopping and I'm waiting in line to check out. And my brain goes, all right, check your phone. Dead time, check your phone. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that. But my brain automatically does it. I'm in the lift to get up to my apartment. And my brain, I've calculated it takes 21 seconds for the lift to go from ground floor to my floor. 21 seconds. And my brain goes, all right, you got 21 seconds, check your phone. But now I'm just like, no, I'm just going to sit in the lift and listen to this podcast. I don't need to be doing 3 things at once. Going in the lift, listening to the podcast, going through Instagram. Instagram will always be there. I wasn't going to talk about this too much, but I don't think Instagram is, I don't think social media is that bad. I think it's just really addictive. I think it's actually fun. And for me as a content tool and a business thing, I really like it, right? But I don't think that it's horrible for us. Well, I think it's bad for us holistically, but I think there are good parts about social media. But I just don't want to be spending an hour on TikTok when I could do literally anything else. So I'm trying to read half an hour a day at least of reading. I go and sit down at the park. I read my book. I leave my phone inside. The other day, like it was a sunny day, I go down with my Kindle to the park and I start reading and I notice, wow, the view is beautiful. The sun is shining. I'm in this beautiful park. I've got to take a photo of this and post it on my Instagram story. Then I realized, one, I left my phone in my apartment. Two, that's ludicrous. Why do I do this? Why am I like, oh, this is look what I'm doing. It's really cool. I have to show everyone on Instagram. So I'm going to take a photo of it. Why do I do that? Why do we do that? Because I was enjoying reading my book and then I thought I have to show everyone that I'm doing this so everyone thinks this is what I do all the time. Oh, Mike does that all the time. No, I don't. I've done it 3 days in a row in an effort to try and beat my phone addiction, which is clearly taking over me. I'm sitting in this park trying to read my Kindle and all my brain is going is take a photo of this, show everyone what you're doing, show everyone you're doing this. Luckily, I left my phone upstairs and I was actually able to just read my book and it was nice. And I actually felt like I was focused on this book, not like, oh, I got to check my notifications, It's crazy. Crazy how much our phones have just taken over our life and it's so ingrained in our society. So anyway, I've been trying to do a bunch of new things. I've got this book that I've had for years, 1001 Songs You Must Listen to Before You Die. Every night I'm just going through 10 of the songs, reading the passage, listening to the song, making a few notes, just to pass time rather than go on TikTok. I'm going to listen to the 1001 song. Anyway, stuff like that. Trying to do stuff out of the house as well. My friend, Alex, he's been on the show before. He is the Coffee Bandit from a few weeks ago. He's actually an artist. His job is he's an artist for games. He does pixel art and game art work. He's always been an artist. He's a fantastic artist. He said, hey, I do a life drawing class every week. Do you want to come? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Knowing completely that I'm terrible at drawing, I'm terrible at art, and I'm going to be crap at this. But I thought, well, in the past, that's a reason I would say, don't do this. Don't go and do this life drawing class. You'll be shit. You'll look like an idiot. You can't draw. Everyone's going to judge you. But I'm like, no, push out of your comfort zone and just do this life drawing class. So I go to this life drawing class. I did a life drawing class. I went out, I took a scooter into Fitzroy and I did a life drawing class last night and it was really fun. And at first I was absolutely terrible. And look, realistically, I was terrible. I'm not going to say I did a great job drawing, but even though I felt like I was going to be really anxious and insecure, I actually felt as though I was really welcome. It was really fun. Everyone was just doing it for fun. Yes, everyone there was a much better artist than me, but everyone was there for fun. No one was there to criticize other people. No one was there to judge other people. It was just, hey, we're doing life drawing. Here's a model. Let's draw them. And I had a great time. And I've realized that being with people is the cure to your phone addiction. Because I was listening to the Imperfects podcast the other day, which is a podcast that Ryan Shelton does. And they had this guy, Johan Hari, on, who's a great author. He's written a lot of great books about this. And he said, the opposite to addiction is connection. And I have noticed when I'm with my friends, when I'm out, when I'm having a good time, I don't want to check my phone. I don't care about my phone. It's only really when I'm alone by myself that I get sucked into my phone vortex. So I'm doing this life drawing class. I have no pressure at all to check my phone. I'm just drawing. At first, I'm crap. But then I actually start focusing a lot and I feel like I'm in a bit of a flow state. And then I'm going to show for the video viewers, I'm going to show some of the art I did. Now, I don't think that this is amazing, but I actually, I don't think it's terrible. So if you're watching the video pod, I might post, you can't really see, but I'm just going to, bit of life drawing. We like trying new things. There you go. That's the model sitting on the stool. Like, I can't do faces, but I actually, basically, the reason I'm talking about this is because I had a really good time, and I'm open to suggestions of things to try, just things to do, that aren't sitting at home. But the funny thing was, I'm doing this life drawing class with my best friend who's a professional artist. He gets paid money to do art. That's literally his job. And I'm sitting there drawing possibly the worst picture of a human being that has ever been drawn in the history of the planet. And then I look over, I'm just sort of sketching, trying to make it look like I know what I'm doing when I absolutely don't. I'm just trying this life drawing class for a new thing. I look over at my friend who's a trained professional paid artist who's doing this life drawing class with me, and he is drawing essentially, probably the best picture of a human that has ever been drawn in the history of the planet. So much detail. And for me, I'm like, I can't see something and just draw it. Everything is out of proportion. Everything is wrong. Nothing is right. The amount of detail on his pictures was absolutely insane and incredible all at once. I could not believe what I was seeing. It was like I was looking at the model and then I was looking at his picture and it was exactly the same. And then it was like in that episode of The Simpsons where Homer's making the barbecue and he looks at the thing and he's like, that's one fine looking barbecue. Why doesn't mine look like that? That's exactly how I felt when I was looking at my drawing of this model. And at the end, everyone puts their drawings in so the model can look at what everyone drew of them. And I didn't put mine in because I was too embarrassed. So that was my adventure life drawing. I'm going to try and just do one activity a week, just something different that I've never done before. Because I do really want to just try new things at the moment. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Okay. Main thing for today's pod that I wanted to talk about, the headliner, is, well, we got our first trailer for the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Now who's gonna stop me?
What is this place?
Do not touch that mushroom, you'll die! Oh, I'm sorry. That one's perfectly fine. Come on, Mario!
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come!
Lots of reviews of this trailer, and of course, video game movies historically have not been good. Most video game movies historically have been very, very bad, critically panned, commercially generally unsuccessful. Recently, though, there's been an influx of a few that have been both critically well received and commercially successful. The Sonic the Hedgehog movies are actually really commercially successful, and I think they're good kids movies. Even Detective Pikachu, the live-action Pokemon movie, cleaned up at the box office, and also, was, I thought, a pretty good movie. I also saw the Uncharted movie earlier this year, and I thought it was fine. So, it's a bit hit and miss, but there's been an influx of better video game movies recently. Super Mario Bros., this movie that is coming out, I've got two things to talk about here. The first one, the trailer. I think the animation looks beautiful. It looks so authentic to the original series, and I thought the trailer shows a lot of Bowser, who is voiced by Jack Black, and I really loved the direction that Jack Black seemed to take this character. I thought it was going to be a really out there kind of Jack Black comedy style character, but he seems to be playing it quite seriously, which I think is what the character needs. Mario is voiced by Chris Pratt. I think the funny thing about Chris Pratt voicing Mario is that, of course, Mario is a relatively silent protagonist in the sense that Mario doesn't really usually have any lines. He has his kind of trademark wahoo, and he's like, here we go, like all the Mario-isms that you hear, but there's never really dialogue between any of the Mario characters in any of the games. So when they announced that Chris Pratt was going to be voicing Mario, I think everyone was like, oh, I wonder what it's going to sound like, because they couldn't do a whole movie of Mario being like, come on, Luigi, we gotta go save a bitch from a Bowser, right? They couldn't do that. So they had to get a famous voice actor in to voice him. And as you heard in that trailer, Chris Pratt is kind of, well, basically, here's the funny thing. Chris Pratt said that he'd been working really, really hard on the Super Mario voice. He's been working really hard to perfect this Super Mario voice, and then after weeks of speculating and theorizing on what it might sound like, because he's worked so hard on it, we get the trailer, and essentially, Chris Pratt is just doing his own voice. which makes me think one of two things. One, either Chris Pratt did work really hard on trying all these different voices, right? All these different voices, and Nintendo or Illumination Media eventually just said, no, we just want you to do your voice. Or he was lying and he was being sarcastic when he said he worked really hard, when he didn't actually work very hard at all and just showed up and did his normal voice with a slight Brooklyn twang. That's what I think. I just thought it was so funny. He said, I've worked so hard on perfecting this voice. Next minute, it's just my voice. That's like if I said, oh, I've been working on this character and I've been working really hard on the voice, and then it's just this. It's just me talking. I am really looking forward to this movie. I think it's in the right hands, and I think it's going to be... what I don't want is for it to be a dumb, cheesy kids movie. I know it's the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but what I mean is I don't want them to do Fortnite dances or have a song or anything like that. I just want it to be... that's what I liked about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. It was just a movie about Sonic the Hedgehog, who's a great character. If you love the games, you love the character. I want this to just be the animation looks great. It looks like it's a recipe for success. I just hope they nail it. That's what I want. I think there's enough passion from Jack Black. I think the fact that Nintendo is really strongly consulting on it, because there was a Super Mario Bros. Movie, a live-action movie in the 90s that commercially flopped and was considered one of the worst movies ever made. And Nintendo didn't have much overseeing guidance over that film. So, publicity-wise, it was a failure. Everything was a failure about that movie. That's why it's taken them 30 years to try it again. And I'm excited to see what they do, because I think they know this movie has to be good. They know it has to be good. They really can't afford... Well, I guess they can... Well, no, they probably can't afford it. This Mario is their biggest character. This is their flagship character. And it needs to be good. It really does need to be good. And I think they're overseeing it. You heard that orchestral version of the Mario theme. I'm so looking forward to the score. Donkey Kong is in it, which I think is great, and I would love to see a spin-off Donkey Kong movie with Diddy Kong and everything. But anyway, that's where it's at. The other thing about this that I wanted to talk about is a lot of people online have been speculating that the Mario movie is going to be the foundation of a brand new cinematic universe. That is the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. So people think there's going to be a Mario movie, then there'll be a Donkey Kong movie, then there'll be maybe a Kirby movie and a Legend of Zelda movie, like with Marvel, and then they're all going to appear together eventually in a Super Smash Brothers movie. Super Smash Brothers, of course, being the crossover fighting game featuring all these Nintendo characters. Now, here's what I want to say about that. And I'm sorry to dash your dreams. I'm sorry to shut down these theories, but I'm telling you now, this is not going to happen. There is not going to be a Nintendo Cinematic Universe. It absolutely will not happen categorically. That doesn't mean that I don't want it to happen. I'd actually love for it to happen. And I think there are so many Nintendo franchises that would make fantastic movies. I genuinely would love to see a Donkey Kong spin-off. I would absolutely love to see a Zelda movie. I also think that the Star Fox franchise would make a phenomenal cartoon or movie or whatever. Star Fox is basically a Star Wars... Basically, it was a Star Wars ripoff that Nintendo made featuring anthropomorphic animal space fighters who were bounty hunters, and it was just a great game. The characters were so good. There's Fox McCloud, Falco, Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, Star Wolf. Yeah, there was all these great characters in that game if you ever played it. I think it would be phenomenal. I would love to see a Star Fox show or movie. I'd love to see Kirby. I'd love to see a Super Smash Brothers movie. Absolutely 100%. But I'm telling you now, it's not going to happen. Nintendo as a company are so conservative with the way they license out their brands, right? It's taken them 30 years to even try to do another Super Mario Bros. Movie. A few years ago, there were rumors that a Legend of Zelda TV series was happening at Netflix, but then it got pulled, and rumor has it, Nintendo pulled the plug because it wasn't up to the standards they wanted, so they just pulled the plug entirely. It won't happen. Because also, the thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that all of these characters did interact with each other and coexist within the comic books. That all happened in the comics. The Nintendo characters, they don't really cross over, except in Super Smash Brothers, which is really just a fighting game. It's not like it's not, it's all made up. It's not canon, I guess, is what you could say. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. It won't. If they do, it'll be terrible. They're going to play it safe. There'll be a Super Mario movie. It'll be like the Lego movie, The Super Mario movie is bound to make a lot of money. Then they'll probably do a sequel. They'll bring in a few more characters, maybe a couple cameos. And then that one will make less money. They might do a third one, and then they'll probably not do any more. They could do a Donkey Kong spin-off. I could see that happening. But that's pretty much it. They're not going to do a cinematic universe. It's not happening. Get it out of your mind. I guarantee you it won't happen. I'll eat my sock if it does happen. So those are my thoughts. Let me know. I want to know people's thoughts on the Super Mario Bros. Movie, because I think it seems pretty hotly debated whether or not it's going to be good. But yeah, I mean, we all know and love the classic Mario Bros. Theme, so I can't wait to hear it in orchestral movie score version. Excuse this interruption, listeners of the podcast. Remember at the start of the show when I mentioned that if you sign up to the Patreon, you might get to see naked photos of me? Well, that's not true, and I wanted to apologise for making those false and or misleading claims. But here's what you can get over on the Patreon, and that's patreon.com/radiomike. You get 3 things. 1, each week you get the Overflow podcast, which is an extra 10 to 20 minutes of me talking that's up at the exact same time as this podcast. And every Friday, you get a Pat and Mike show episode with me and producer Pat. Now, I don't know about you, but I reckon that's way better than seeing me naked. And believe me, I've seen me naked. So, if you do want to support the show and see me naked, or one of the two, then go to patreon.com/radiomike. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. That's $12 a year or 3 coffees a year. Or you can also sign up for $4, $8, $12, $20 as some people do. This week on The Overflow, I'm going to be talking about what I think the role of nostalgia is in the media industry today. So jump on to hear me talk about that straight after you finish listening to this. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Hi, this is Donald Trump. And when I'm not storming the Capitol, I'm listening to Radio Mike's podcast, 20th Century Boy.
Moving on. Of course, one of our biggest arcs over the past few weeks is the Typo drama. Typo's paper bags that feature Radio Mike on them. I made a clip where I talked about this because basically for the past 6 years, every few months, someone sends me the Typo paper bag with Radio Mike on it. Every 6 months. Every few months. And I've never wanted to talk about it because I didn't think there was a good angle on it. I was like, should I talk about this? No, probably not. There's no good angle for it. But then I just thought, oh, fuck it. It keeps coming through. I'm definitely going to talk about it. And so I talk about it. I say to Typo, I tag them in this clip and I say, you're stealing my copyright. I want a $100 gift card or I'll see you in court. Typo did respond. And let me tell you this. The good people at Typo have in fact delivered. And not only have they delivered, well, look, they sent me a few things. This notebook, this Typo notebook that says, hug more, worry less, from the good people at Typo. Beautiful notebook. So I'll start taking notes in there. And of course, as promised, they gave me this $100 gift card. Typo did deliver, everyone. You can stop harassing them. You can stop defending me because, like the good people that Typo are, they delivered. They realized they wanted to keep this out of court, keep this out of the media, just keep it on the down low. Thankfully, you guys liking and viewing that clip, getting it over 100,000 views, tagging Typo in it for comment, it worked. Typo says, thanks for keeping this out of court. Love, Typo. P.S. We have charged you 1 cent for emotional damages. That is from the good people at Typo. And we love Typo here at the 20th Century Boy podcast. In fact, Typo actually recorded an entire TikTok and posted on TikTok tagging me in it, explaining everything they did, because it was really fun. They actually wrapped all of this stuff in the Typo paper bag packaging, but they had cut out my face and stuck it on it, and then it was like a babushka doll. Every time I unwrapped one layer, there was another layer of packaging again with my face on it. There was like 5 layers. I was like, what is this? This is amazing. Amazing effort. An amazing marketing team from the good people at Typo. Here's what they posted.
To allegations made by Radio Mike. Thanks for keeping this out of court. Love, Typo. P.S. We have charged you 1 cent for emotional damages. We also decided to be very generous and gift Radio Mike with a birthday card. The birthday card, the gift card for $99.99, and a personalised note were placed into this journal. For this occasion, we prepared personalised wrapping paper tailored to Radio Mike. Tiny Mike heads were placed on the bag in question and secured very firmly, with a punch filled with love. So, Radio Mike, we hope that you accept this peace offering and wish you nothing but the best in all your future endeavours. The package is on its way to you now. Love always, Team Typo.
Team Typo, the best in the business. We absolutely love Typo here. It's not to do with the fact that they gave us a $100 gift card and conceded and kept this out of court. Not to do with that. We just have always loved Typo. And here's what I need you guys to do, the listeners of this show and the viewers of this clip, whatever you're viewing this on. We've got $99.99 to spend at Typo. What do we spend it on? You guys helped get this. You guys helped get the money. You guys helped get the gift card. What do you reckon we spend it on? I'm looking for tips. What should we spend the money on? Comment it, send in a message to me. I might go into Typo this afternoon, have a wander around, see what's available. You should do the same. Take photos, send it to me. Something weird, something wacky, something for this show. That's what I want. Typo, thanks again. Some really alarming news that I heard this week that shocked me. And I think this will shock you too. I think this will shock you to your very core, especially if you like podcasts and you are a podcaster, especially if you are a podcaster. Because, you know, I'm a podcaster and I'm an independent podcaster. I podcast for fun. I make a little bit of money off it, but it's not my main hustle. And I don't know if it ever will be. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/RadioMike. However, I've always thought it's really tough because when you are a podcaster these days, you're not competing with just other podcasters. Well, you are, but not just other podcasters. You're competing with literally every celebrity in the world because inevitably every celebrity makes a podcast, and generally that podcast is just that celebrity getting their other friends who are also celebrities on for interviews and just talking shit for an hour. And because they're a celebrity, they get more listens, they get more money, more ads, and people like me can never really cut through, even though I've been trying really hard for nearly 5 years now. Thanks, guys. But seriously, I might talk about that more in a future episode because that is an irritating thing for me that I struggle with a bit and I get really jealous. But anyway, that's just the inside of my mind. The point is, you know, everyone has a podcast. Meghan Markle, she's got a podcast. Oprah, she's got a podcast. You know, these people can't be satisfied with just one thing. Oprah, TV host. Meghan Markle, famous actor and married to a literal prince. I got to do a podcast as well. Everyone has a podcast, right? And now we're not even just competing with worldwide celebrities. No. If you're a podcaster in today's day and age, you need to act soon. Because, and we should all be shocked by this, it has come to my attention that fictional children's cartoon character Arthur the Aardvark, we all know him, we all love him. Every day when you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet, and I said, hey, what a one, you know him. Arthur, the cartoon Aardvark, is doing a podcast. Yes, you heard that right. You're no longer just competing with every comedian in the world, Meghan Markle, Oprah, every single person in this entire planet that is doing a podcast. You're now also competing with fictional children's cartoon characters. What's a podcaster got to do to break through, guys? Because I guarantee you Arthur's podcast is going to be much bigger than mine. Here's a little excerpt. The PBS Kids TV show Arthur may have ended, but the Aardvark has more to say. That's why later this month, the beloved cartoon character is launching the Arthur podcast. Real creative name. The show will revisit tales from the former TV series, as well as narrate new stories about school, friendships, and family. So he's just repurposing old content. Nothing new here. And here's the part that really annoyed me. The podcast will have an interactive component too. Listeners are encouraged to send voice messages to be aired on the show. Excuse me, Arthur? Excuse me? Because I've been encouraging my listeners to do that for 4 years. And that's what I thought was my podcast's main point of difference. There you go, guys. As a podcaster in 2022, not only are you an independent podcaster here by yourself trying to break through to the mainstream and get any traction you can, you're being pushed back by everyone. By Meghan Markle, by Jason Bateman, by Arthur the Aardvark. And because of this... Oh, sorry, hang on, I'm just getting a phone call. Sorry. Hello? Yeah. What, the podcast... I'm not hosting the podcast anymore. What? It's cheaper to pay a cartoon character to host the podcast than it is to pay a real... What, so he's just... Oh, God. Okay, guys. It's actually come to my attention that because you don't have to pay fictional characters to do podcast, I'm no longer the host of 20th Century Boy.
Show your move. Good news, everyone. Don't you little giddy when you see onions have flavor.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
Hey, Arthur!
Ah! DW!
What are you doing?
I'm recording my podcast.
What's it about?
Me and my friends?
Boring.
And I actually just got a text from Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen, who host TOEFOP. Apparently they've been replaced too.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
Oh my God, Twitter's blowing up because Hamish and Andy have been replaced as well.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast. I'll be telling you about my friends and my family.
I can't believe this. The New York Times flagship podcast, The Daily, has a brand new host as well.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast.
Okay, this is bullshit. I'm just looking at... Hang on, I just got an email. It's a press release. Oh my God, Australia's favourite comedy trio, Auntie Donna, have been replaced by Arthur.
G'day legends and welcome to another rip episode of the Auntie Donna podcast.
You're listening to the Auntie Donna podcast, the greatest fucking podcast in the world. Brother Mike and Zach and sometimes a guest. We hope you enjoy the motherfucking podcast.
Hello there. I'm Arthur Reed, and this is the Arthur Podcast.
Sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I just had to... I just found that so funny that I had to do it that many times because sorry, yeah, I do think it's really annoying that Arthur has a podcast now, just because I guess, like, truthfully speaking, like, I do put a lot of effort into this podcast, and I hope you guys see and feel that, and I know a lot of podcasters do. I'm not putting any other podcasters down, but for me, as a relatively unknown, like, when I started this podcast, nobody knew me. Like, I was literally a no one. I was like 23. I still am a no one. Just some people know who I am and stop me on the street now, which is weird, but it happens. But it just is, I do find it a little bit annoying, and I talk to friends about it all the time. I do find it a little bit annoying that, like, if you are moderately famous in any way, it's like, start a podcast, another revenue stream. And then it's like, where are my opportunities to break through more? Like, this podcast is growing steadily. And again, I ask you guys, as always, share it around, share it with your friends, post it on your story, tweet about it, please. Like, I'd love to see more of that. That's your homework, guys. I'd love to see a little bit more sharing the pod around. Get in touch with me, of course, but share it around with your friends if you think it's funny. I'd love that, because that's how we're going to grow. All these other comedians get picked up by the big podcast, people, and they have publicity teams and sales teams and digital creating teams who cut their clips. Like, for me, I've got Pat, producer Pat. He's amazing, but otherwise, it's literally all me doing, like, I do everything. I write the pod, any sales stuff I do by myself, anything to do with money, running a Patreon, making all the content, editing, cutting clips, it's all me. I don't have any big team around me. I've got the fantastic Pat, but that's, that's basically it. And we'd love to expand, but it's just harder and harder to break through in the podcast industry now. Luckily, we've got you guys who are listening, who are like loyal listeners, and I feel like we have such a dedicated and motivated fan base that some of these big celebrities, or like some of these big podcasts that, have a lot of listeners because the name is big, but I don't know how many of them are dedicated listeners, whereas we have a lot of dedicated listeners. Again, not to plug it again, but like, if you feel dedicated, give $1 a month on the Patreon as well. I'm just trying to, like, I wasn't supposed to talk about it. Like, I love doing this podcast, guys. That's not why I'm talking about this. I did just think it was funny that now I have to compete with Arthur. And if there's a kid out there that's listening to the Arthur podcast instead of the Mike podcast, fuck you. Fuck you so hard. Oh, God. Okay. Might be a little bit of a shorter episode today. But I've got 2 more things to talk about here. So I'll talk about both of them because we've only been going about 40 minutes. Could do another 10 minutes. The first one, and I'm like, this might be controversial. I've been watching a lot of She-Hulk, the Marvel TV series, She-Hulk, which is obviously the woman who can turn into the Hulk. And a lot of people on Twitter have been hating this show, like just ripping into it, calling it terrible, calling it crap. My friend Dave Lee Down Under, he's always doing sassy reply tweets to people criticizing it because he really likes it. I've been checking it out. I'm nearly finished. I've got 2 eps left and I really like it. I've just been putting it on in the background while I clean the apartment, and I don't know what everyone's problem is with it. It's really funny, and it just reminds me of that Futurama episode where they're making the show Single Female Lawyer, because that's literally what She-Hulk is. She's a single female lawyer who can also turn into the Hulk, into a Hulk rather. And I think it's really fun. It's certainly different to what Marvel has come to be known for, but honestly, I'm actually really sick of the Marvel skeleton and the Marvel way of making stuff. And that's why I really liked WandaVision, because it was really unique and different and felt like a different thing. It felt stylistically very different, and so does She-Hulk. I don't want to just see the same. That's why I didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I watched the first episode. I was like, this is boring. Why would I want to watch this? Something different and unique sucks me in. And I really like She-Hulk. I'm getting behind it all the way. I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's fun. I think it's funny. I think it's creative. The cameos are fun. If you're into the MCU, it's fun, but it's different. I don't want to see the same cookie cutter Marvel movies all the time. I like stuff that's different. I think people just want everything to be exactly the same all the time, and then something slightly unique and different. They're like, oh, no, can't watch that. I don't know. I've been really liking She-Hulk. Okay, final thing. There might have originally been an opener for this a long time ago. As I always say on this pod, things often are promised, they don't happen. It seems to be a common trend of lots of podcasts. Some podcasts might even call it a peter out. Anyway, a few years ago on this podcast, I came up with an idea that I wanted to do. And I really wanted to do it, and I still do. But the timing never felt right. Generally because it was COVID. I don't even know when it must have been 2 years ago that I first floated this idea. But I've decided that I'm going to do this idea by the end of this year. Maybe for the last episode of the year. I'm going to do it. And the idea was this. I had this idea that at often at malls and shopping centres, you'll see a gumball machine. Generally, here in Australia, you put in 20 cents, you twist the thing, and the gumball spins out. You get a gumball. Great for kids. Kids love it. I had an idea a few years ago that what if you just spent a few hours emptying one of those gumball machines? I call it Gumball-orama. That's what I called it all those years ago. That's what it's still called. Gumball-orama. Get a bunch of 20-cent coins, just stand there and keep twisting the thing until the gumball machine is empty and you have all the gumballs. I think I counted it and I estimated that there might be 500 gumballs in there, which comes to $100. Like 500 divided by 20 cents, it's $100. So what we're going to do at the end of the year, finally, is I'm going to get $100 cash out, all in 20-cent coins. We're going to find one of these gumball machines and we're going to empty every gumball in the gumball machine. That's right. We are finally doing Gumball-orama. More news to come because we need to scout out the best gumball machine to do. But Gumball-orama will be happening by the end of the year. Celebration music, please, Mike. Put it in post because I didn't prepare it. And you can be part of this. How can you be part of it? If you want to pre-order a gumball, send 20 cents to paypal.me/itsradiomike. 20 cents goes a long way. That secures you one gumball. I'm selling them at cost price. I'm not profiting from this. If you want a gumball, 20 cents. I'm going to keep all the gumballs in a bag and I'm going to send them out to you. Maybe. That might be expensive. You might have to pay for postage of your gumball, but if you want to pre-order a gumball, send 20 cents to paypal.me/itsradiomike. I know some of you did this 2 years ago when I originally did it, so if you did it already, don't worry. You can have 5 gumballs for $1, right? This isn't a money-making scheme. I just want to raise the $100. I'll take it out of the Patreon kitty anyway, but you know, if you want your own gumball, just send us 20 cents, maybe 25 cents, because I think PayPal takes a cut. But Gumball-orama is happening by the end of the year. If there's a gumball machine near you in Melbourne, let me know where it is, because I went over to my local shopping centre. They don't have one anymore. They definitely had one when I was a kid, but they don't have one anymore. So we're going to have to find one, because I've moved 3 times since I did originally have this idea. But Gumball-orama will happen. Get excited for it. Now, let's finish up today's show with one of these bad boys. The plug. Not a whole lot to plug this week. I did a sketch with Jack Post, which I think should be up in the next week or so. Keep your eyes out on Instagram for that. I also just put up a video because I had already written the podcast when I found out that Tom DeLonge is rejoining Blink-182. They're doing a new album and a tour, and that is awesome news that I'm very excited about. I put up a YouTube video talking about all my thoughts on that, so that's there now as a little bonus. Go and check that out. The clips on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel to just, if you're listening to this pod for the first time, first of all, welcome. And if you're like, this is fun, I don't know if I can keep up with 45 minutes, 50 minutes every week, but I am interested in what Mike has to say. I put short clips of this pod on YouTube, 5-minute clips, 10-minute clips of the stuff I've talked about. So subscribe there. TikTok, radio.mike on Instagram, radio.mike on TikTok. It's Radio Mike on Twitter. Again, tweet about the show. 2 things. The Pat and Mike show is still going over on Patreon, as is the Overflow podcast. The Pat and Mike show, we do a deep dive on one of the topics I've talked about this week, each week on the pod. Last week, we talked a little bit about Ed Sheeran and his Pokemon collaboration. And
Wait, what do you reckon the next Ed Sheeran's album going to be called?
Yeah, that's a good point. Was the first one plus?
Plus.
And then was the
Plus,
second one minus?
Minus.
And then
Divide.
has he done
and then
times?
He's done X.
Oh, X. Okay. I guess his next few albums would, like, he's done the big four of mathematics, but then you'd think he could, like you said, pi, percentage, maybe slash, because sometimes slash is used for divide. And then what else could it, maybe Batman symbol? Like maybe Ed Sheeran's next album is just called Batman Symbol, and it's just a Batman symbol. There you go. So that's really fun. All the Patreon content is an appendage to this podcast. So if you like this podcast and want more, the Patreon content just dives deeper into stuff I talk about on this show, sometimes with Pat or on The Overflow, just 20 minutes more by myself. So jump on there. And of course, Harry Potter and the Boys, my other podcast, is back. Sammy Garlep doing a great job there. As always, it's where I read my Harry Potter fan fiction, but we often just go on detours and talk about stuff not related at all. The Big Brother contestants used to go on Rove, which was like a late night talk show.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, imagine being Rove, late night talk show host who's interviewing celebrities like Jerry Seinfeld was on that show. And
Yeah.
it's like, all right, thanks, Jerry Seinfeld.
Now
Next
got
up,
Bree.
it's Bree from Big Brother.
Yeah.
Come on out, Bree. How was your time on Big Brother? Yeah, good. All right, thanks, Bree. And then Bree and Jerry Seinfeld are just sitting on the couch
That's insane.
together.
That is insane.
That's pretty much it, guys. Patreon.com/Radio Mike if you want to support. Really excited about how the pod's going and the numbers and all of you guys writing in each week. It's amazing. Send in a message. I do see them all. I don't reply to all the Instagram ones, but I do see them all. And I do see all your emails. And I try to just read out as many as possible on the show. Especially if you ask a question. The best way to get featured on the show is ask a question in your email about something you want me to talk about or answer. That's the best way, because that's the easiest way for me to make it into content, to be honest. Otherwise, just love hearing from you regardless. Thank you so much, guys. My name's been Radio Mike, and this podcast has been The Inside of My Mind. I will catch you next week. Hey, why are you crying, little boy? Oh, because the podcast is over and now I don't get to listen to Mike anymore and he's so funny and great. Ah, but aren't you a member of the Patreon? Yeah. Well, that means that you actually get access to the Overflow podcast, so you can keep listening to Mike, and he does another 20 minutes over on the Patreon, and it's up right now. Well, that's great, because I'm a Patreon member and I give $1 a month, so I can access the Overflow podcast. That's right. And you also get access to the Pat and Mike podcast. That's 2 bonus podcasts that I get for being on the Patreon at patreon.com/Radio Mike. Jump on the Patreon now and be like this kid. You don't have to cry anymore. The Patreon is overflowing with content. Yeah. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.